Hi there, Rebecca Koffler with Censored But Not Silenced. I have very important information for you today. President Biden is indeed placing the U.S. homeland into Russia Putin's nuclear crosshairs. As you know from various media reports, President Biden recklessly authorized around Sunday timeframe the permission to Ukrainian President Zelensky to use U.S. weapons, ATACMS, to strike Russia deep into its territory. Okay? And what that has done is it provoked Putin's Russia to make a very frightening statement. And it's not just a statement. We know that a lot of times the media uses phrases like nuclear saber rattling and things like that, in effect minimizing the consequences and the significance of the situation. But as someone who served as an intelligence officer on the Russia target at the Defense Intelligence Agency and worked with the CIA's National Clandestine Service operating against the Russian target, I can tell you that this is extremely, extremely serious. So what happened was today, earlier this morning, is that Zelensky went ahead and used that permission and struck deep inside Russia using U.S. intermediate range missiles. What Ukrainians did is they struck a military base in the Bryansk region. Bryansk sits at the intersection of Russia's borders with Ukraine and also close to Belarus. Belarus is part of Russia's so-called union state, similar to what the Soviets used to have, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Well, Belarus is effectively part of Russia in a way. They call themselves the Union. So what the strike did was, thankfully, there was a total of 6 ATACMS missiles, ballistic missiles, that struck that military base. 5 of them were intercepted by the Russian air defenses, which are one of the most robust in the world, rivaling some of U.S. air defenses. So 1 missile got through. The debris fell on the military base, but thankfully there were no casualties, according to Russia. But Putin's press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, announced that Putin indeed today made a change to Russia's nuclear doctrine. The change itself was made several months ago, but what he did today, he actually signed the so-called edict or decree, the Russian word is ukaz, approving it. And what that change does, it lowers the threshold for the employment of nuclear weapons. Why are Russians exercised like this? And they actually did state right after the reports came out that Biden reportedly made that approval, made that authorization that he gave to Zelensky. The Russians made it unequivocally clear that they would interpret it as an act of war, and they would interpret it as the United States now fighting on the side of Ukrainians. Why is that? It's because ATACMS missiles, they require U.S. personnel to program the flight trajectory of the actual missile, and they require U.S. satellites. Yes, technically a Ukrainian soldier can push the button, but the entire targeting of the weapon requires U.S. personnel, U.S. satellites. Formally, it's either U.S. Army or U.S. Marine Corps that are authorized to operate ATACMS. Okay, so this is placing directly the United States in the war between Russia and Ukraine. And the Russians are now viewing us as a combatant. And they made it very, very, very clear. And now the doctrine, the nuclear doctrine, was developed in the course of years, and the Russians typically use it as a last resort. But having seen what they perceive Washington using a third party in this situation, Ukraine, to strategically defeat Russia. And those were the narratives coming out of the Biden administration, specifically Lloyd Austin stated several times that the whole purpose of the United States supplying Ukraine with weaponry, and we in fact provided to them almost $200 billion worth of weaponry and cash in order to be able to prosecute this war. So Lloyd Austin himself said that the goal is to weaken Russia economically and militarily so Putin cannot invade another country. Well, Putin invaded the country for a very specific reason. Ukraine is part of Russia's strategic security perimeter on which it relied for its security for centuries. It's similar, it's Putin's version of our Monroe Doctrine, right? So that's why he invaded, to prevent Ukraine from becoming part of NATO. And now we are in this situation that a World War III is about to break out. How did Putin change the nuclear doctrine? Lowering the threshold. I'll give you a very specific language. The Russians are very legalistic about it. So the specific verbiage is any aggression against Russia, even by a non-nuclear state, if supported by a nuclear power, will be considered as a joint attack. Okay, so because the United States is a nuclear power, we are actually providing all of the C4ISR support. C4ISR stands for Command Control Communications, computers, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. But basically, it's all the targeting, all the software programming to make sure that the missile flies on the right trajectory to the right target and destroys the target with a very specific designated battle damage that we're trying to achieve to compel Russia to, de-escalate. Okay. It appears as though Biden, what's unclear here is that why is Biden displaying this insane behavior right about the time when President Trump is about to come in, and either Biden is completely deranged and off his rocker at this point, or this is deliberate. It's not clear, because Biden himself, remember, just approximately 2 years ago, when he was giving a briefing at the fundraising event in New York at the DNC, he himself explained why he was calibrating very carefully his approach in Ukraine, why he was trickling down weaponry to Ukraine, even though there was a lot of pressure from Zelensky to give more weaponry. In fact, we have been depleting our own military arsenal, weapons arsenal. We have no production capacity to scale up production, and we have China, Iran, threats breathing down our neck. And so, but until yesterday, Biden was listening to the intelligence community that warned that Putin will retaliate not just against Ukraine, but against the United States and against Europe lethally. Those are the words from the intelligence community assessment that came out as recently as September. That's like 2 months ago. And Biden was listening to it, and then all of a sudden he abandoned his cautious approach. The question is why? Is he insane? Is he trying to get our country deliberately into war? And there are speculations in some corners of Washington that what Biden actually wants to do is by engaging in the war that will highly likely go nuclear with Russia, is because he wants to remain in power, that he wants to declare an emergency situation in the United States to prevent the transfer of power to President Trump. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but remember, lately, the difference between a fact and conspiracy theory, it's been, a couple of months. Whether if you look back at the Hunter Biden laptop, the Russian disinformation, that was a conspiracy theory, according to New York Times and Washington Post and all those Soviet-like, disinformation outlets. Same with COVID, right? The COVID vaccine was supposed to prevent the spread of COVID, all of those things. I completely would not rule out the possibility that the deep state is indeed thinking in that direction, preventing President Trump from becoming president, actually, because look at what they have done to him. They've done everything possible. It was the impeachments, it was the Russia collusion hoax, to the point that there were 2 assassination attempts on Trump. They've thrown everything at him. So, but again, Biden's motivation is a mystery, remains a mystery. Why he's walking us into a nuclear war with Russia. For now, I'll tell you that the Europeans are already preparing for such a war. In Finland, what's going on right now, the Russians have escalated their non-kinetic attacks. Very specifically, the cables, the communication data cables in the Black Sea, on the seabed, were cut by the Russians between Sweden and between Finland, right? And so that's another strategic messaging from Putin. What he's trying to say is don't go there, don't escalate, because there will be a response, because we tend not to listen. Putin actually does everything that he says he's going to do. Is just his signaling is a little bit too extended, giving us time to react. But the way that we interpret it is that it's all bluster. Well, eventually the same thing happened with Ukraine. He kept saying it's a red line, it's a red line, it's a red line. No one listened to him, and then boom, he invaded Ukraine. The same thing is going on right now. Similar, Russia's sabotage activities and non-kinetic activities right now are targeting the Nordic countries. Sweden, Finland, and Norway. They actually have updated their crisis advice for their citizens, warning them to prepare to survive a war. Okay, so this is serious stuff. You can Google this right now, and I would recommend that we all also prepare, that we get ready. The Russians are not going to just carelessly strike the U.S. homeland. They are concerned, they are afraid, but they do have a plan to do that depending on how the war progresses. If significant population centers such as Moscow, St. Petersburg, and others do get targeted by Ukraine, Putin is not going to wait until, the capital of Russia is destroyed. He is going to make sure that he does something very lethal and very provocative to get his message across that the US and NATO need to stop using Ukraine to defeat Russia. That is how they are interpreting it. Okay, so that's the situation. Stay tuned. Very serious. Follow me on various social media, Twitter, Getter, YouTube, Rumble, you name it, at Rebecca0132. God bless everyone, and let's pray that U.S. homeland is safe.